Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We might give it 1 minute just so we get other people here. I know we had a lot more folks registered than we've got on the call. So we'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get things going. But we've got a lot of good stuff to talk about, so we want to make sure we make the time for it. Okay, I think that people have had enough time, and they'll join as we go along. But you should all be rewarded for being here on time. You shouldn't be punished by being made to wait anymore. So. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This is, as Georgia mentioned, the first of our regulatory transformation webinars for AFSA. There'll be details on what's yet to come towards the end of the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. What we're going to do today is this is going to be a real overview of the regulatory transformation strategy that we have within the AFSA Chemicals and Consumer Products workstream. What I'll do is take you through a little bit of what AFSA is, who we are, what we've been doing up till now, and then we will also be sharing what we are going to be doing in the future and where we're headed within the scope of this strategy. So let's get started. But before we do a little bit of housekeeping. Just want to mention the fact that this webinar will be recorded. Recording's already been started. And we aim to make this webinar available on our website, afsacollaboration.org. Please note that we won't share the slides online. If you do want to see the slides after the webinar, please reach out to me and I can send them to you directly. But we won't be hosting these on our website. And as Georgia has mentioned in the chat, please, if you have any questions at the end, please use the Q&A function. Feel free to populate that as we go throughout the webinar, but we will leave some time at the end. We hope to have around 10 minutes for questions at the end. So yeah, please use the Q&A rather than the chat. We might not be monitoring the chat necessarily. So with that said, I'd like to introduce myself and the other speakers that you will hear from today. My name is Jay Ingram. I'm the Managing Director for Chemicals here at Humane World for Animals within our research and testing space. I'm joined today by Dr. Georgia Paloka, who is our Senior Program Director for Regulatory Science within research and testing at Humane World. We're also joined by Dr. Harald Schlatter, who is the Director of Safety Science Communications at Senior Director of Safety Science Communications. Apologies, Harald, at Proctor and Gamble. And thank you both for joining us. You're most welcome, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say to us. But before we get to them, I'm afraid you'll have to listen to me for a little bit. And I'll talk to you a little bit about AFSA if you're not very familiar with who we are. We are a multi-sector partnership between nonprofit, corporate, philanthropic leaders, some other stakeholders as well. Anyone who really has a desire to see an advancement for the acceptance and use of animal-free safety science worldwide. We had a few different work streams focusing on cosmetics, chemicals, and medicines. However, over time, because of some successes that we've had and some analysis that we did, we decided to refine things and really group together our cosmetics and chemicals work to form this new work stream of chemicals and consumer products, or CCP, which is the work stream that I lead and that you're hearing about today. We also have a separate work stream on medicines that also tackles biologicals and vaccines, which is a separate group, but they're also doing some really incredible work. So do look them up if you're interested. But across the whole of AFSA, we have a number of different and very diverse partners. This slide shows just a list of some of the partners that we work with. As you can see, a huge number of different sort of types of groups, lots of different perspectives, lots of different experience, lots of skills captured within all of these different partners, and it really helps to make AFSA, I think, really a wonderful and effective partnership, covering a lot of ground, really within a relatively tight group of people, which is really nice. So we've been around for a number of years now, and within this time, we've been influential in seeing some federal cosmetic animal testing bans come in a few countries like Mexico, Brazil, Canada, and Chile, as well as contributing to cosmetic animal testing sales bans in a number of US states. Within the medical side of things, we've been very active in the deletion or waiver of obsolete animal tests in a number of different countries. And back on the kind of cosmetics, chemicals, and consumer product space, hopefully you will be familiar with our AFSA Masterclass in Animal-Free Safety Assessment. But if you're not, then George is going to be taking us through a little bit of what that's all about. We've also been really quite active in publishing think pieces and papers that really are targeted tools for ensuring regulator accountability. The first of these was the AFSA Last Resort publication, which was published a few years ago now, which really aimed to look at the last resort requirement in EU REACH and identify case studies where this wasn't being applied appropriately. We evolved that into investigating animal testing that was considered difficult, impossible, or meaningless, or DIM. And the publication on this particular work is expected to be delivered in the next couple of months. We're also now looking to evolve this work and continue it, looking really at animal testing that's done, but really doesn't net any results that will be useful for regulatory or safety assessment. We're also working on developing what we call our last resort decision tree tools. And George is going to talk a lot about one of these tools in particular, and about how these came about and how they're intended to be used. But really, these tools are aimed to help companies and regulators understand what's available, understand how and when to use non-animal methods, and really how these can be documented and demonstrated to aim good conversation between companies, regulators, and anybody who has an interest in this area. And this year has been really super exciting for us at AFSA, as all of this work that we've done already, and the work that we have yet to come, led to us being awarded the Lush Prize for the Major Science Collaboration this year, which we're still super excited about, as you can probably tell. So it was great to see that work recognized, and it's really helping to spur us on to achieve what we have ahead of us. So we're very excited about this for sure. Thank you. Now, in terms of this work stream in particular, like I said at the top, we're focusing on regulatory transformation. And what this is a kind of global harmonization or consistency within the space of animal-free safety science as it pertains to chemicals management regulations and anything that is downstream of those regulations as well. We aim to do this by building bridges, building capacity, which includes capability and also trust. Trust is a really big part of what we're doing here, and also alignment amongst stakeholders in a number of different global markets. And we'll go into what that looks like in a little bit. But we really want to leverage the existing roadmaps and the strategies. We've seen the EU roadmap published recently. There's a number of different strategies out there. We really want to leverage these together and make sure that we can influence implementation efforts to make sure that they're positive forces of change, and that the milestones that are contained within can be achieved and can be implemented well. The key pillars of this strategy, I've already talked about them, but you're going to hear more about them anyway. So our last resort decision trees and also our masterclass, really important in helping regulators and everyone else gain trust, gain experience, and really understand how animal-free safety science can be done. So the way that we go about this, like I said, it's important that we have dialogue with the right stakeholders, that we're inviting the right people into the room, that people feel part of the conversation, people feel that they can express their views. And then through that, we can then build capacity. We can help people understand what's possible. We can help them build trust and confidence in using non-animal methods. And through this, we hope to see this regulatory transformation. So I wanted to show you this slide. This really helps exemplify how the AFSA Chemicals and Consumer Products workstream is set up. You can see here in this diagram on the right, at the center is our Global Science Committee, because it's very critical for us within AFSA that science is at the center of everything we do. Every decision that we make, every project and policy action that we take has to be based on science. And we keep it at the center, and it is global because science doesn't really respect political boundaries. The data is the data, and the science is the science. So we want to make sure that we understand this as a fundamental before we then understand how we can apply this in different local markets. So you can see then around the top, we have a number of different local teams, and these represent how we're going to be interacting on a local or regional or country level. And what we aim to do is really establish a regulatory best practice in a leading chemicals market. We have selected the EU. It's a mature market. There's a lot happening in this space, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to engage. We want to then use this best practice to inform how we will work with different local teams around the world. And we will work within these countries with in-country individuals, making sure we identify the right stakeholders, making sure we're building local capacity and capability and confidence in NAMs, next generation risk assessment, and these principles, making sure that it's actually relevant for these countries and it's going to be useful in these countries. But we still want to make sure that we align on a global best practice to make sure that we're not, we can see global consistency as quickly as possible. So I've spoken about the role that our Global Science Committee plays in this. I'll show you who is involved in that Global Science Committee, because we've gathered together a really excellent group of experts. And also I want to mention at the bottom here, we are underpinned by our AFSA Chemicals and Consumer Products Executive Committee. And I'll show you who is involved in that as well. But this group is important for helping us with strategic oversight and guiding the way forward. So on our Global Science Committee, we have a number of different experts. We have experts, as you can see here, from a very broad range of different experiences. We have people from government research organizations. We have people from industry. We have regulators on board. We have consultants. We have us from an NGO level. We have another NGO testing lab, IIVS. And we also have academic expertise. And you can see as well that we do have a real global spread within this group. So this is a really exciting group that helps us understand what is possible from a scientific perspective, helps us keep a keen view into the future in terms of what's coming down the track and how we can make sure that we make the most of the best science that is available. I should mention that many of these are invited members, invited committee members. A lot of these are not AFSA members proper. We want to make sure that what we can do is have independent, good quality scientific advice. So we rely on this group to help us with that. Next, we have our executive committee, and this is made up purely of AFSA members. And so it's important that everybody, has a say in what we are doing, in the direction we're taking, and how we go forward towards achieving regulatory transformation. I do want to mention that Ray Boughton at the bottom there from Delphic HSE was elected by the executive committee as the industry co-chair. And so I want to thank Ray, and I also want to thank the members of all of our committees for being involved and helping us advance in this very important endeavor. I just want to take a little bit of time right now to re-look at the issue that we're facing. I think sometimes we can look at things maybe a bit clinically, maybe really forget just exactly why we're doing what we're doing. But the global chemicals management regulations around the world use millions of animals every year, which is, something that we read, but maybe don't really quite visualize in our mind every time. But if you do visualize it, it's, obviously an extremely important issue that we need to address. And, many of these chemicals management regulations indicate that animal testing should only be used as a last resort. As we found within our paper and a number of other cases, there's very little enforcement of this. So it's something that needs to be done. Coupled with this, there's been increasing skepticism in the relevance for human health outcomes from animal tests. And so we need to make sure that what we're doing doesn't just benefit lab animals, but also making sure that the techniques and the advancements we're proposing can help human health and the environment as well. We have some great opportunities in terms of revisions and roadmaps and new laws that are coming down the track to us. And so we really want to make the most of these opportunities and be able to leverage them into something useful and pragmatic and helpful. This slide, you've probably seen sort of versions of this, but really when we talk about non-animal methods, there's phases in which we can categorize them. So phase one NAMs are NAMs that are very mature, very ready for use. We can use them really right now, very short term. Phase two are areas where non-animal methods are still in development, maybe undergoing validation, still have a little bit of time and need to be shaped. And phase three, where it's still quite a ways off, and we're really still in the early development and research phase of a lot of these methods. And this is how we're kind of categorizing them internally. We tend to put them on a matrix that looks a little bit like this. George is going to be talking you through kind of the detail on how we are going to be categorizing things and addressing things. This is a real kind of generic just way of looking at things for our minds so that we can hopefully see how we can get phase three endpoints turned into phase twos and phase twos into phase ones, and then everything implemented so that we have proper regulatory transformation. And we're being helped along in that effort by all of these opportunities that I mentioned. So we've seen recently roadmaps or strategies published in the UK, the EU, the US. Canada is working on developing their roadmap right now. Within South Korea, there's a big push for more and more assessments to be conducted using non-animal methods. And they have a stop point at 2030 where they want to see 60% of assessments conducted using NAMs. And in Brazil, we have a new law, which is very exciting, new chemicals law. And we've had a hand as Humane World in shaping the decree that will operationalize this law and really hopefully help make this a little bit better for lab animals. So these are the opportunities that we aim to capitalize on as AFSA. We're going to be active in all of these areas and a few more, and we'll tell you more about this as the time goes on. But for now, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Dr. Schlatter. Harald, would you please be able to provide a perspective of what it's like to actually be an AFSA partner?
Thank you so much, Jay, also for your kind offer to sharing just a couple of perspectives. I just have this kind of a our hero slide. So nothing in text on the slide. So I'm afraid you have to follow what I'm saying. So As P&G, we're several decades collaborating partner with the Humane World for Animals, and as you came forward with the idea of an animal-free safety assessment collaboration, we were immediately excited and agreed to become member, and we became a founding member of AFSA. Because we strongly believe to end animal testing, we really need to work closely together across all different work streams, all different stakeholders. And in this regard, AFSA is indeed unique, strongly rooted in science, bringing together leading experts from so many different stakeholders, from academia, from regulators, from animal welfare groups, and from industry. And here, not only from downstream manufacturers like P&G, but, and this is at least equally important, also from the chemical industry and the ingredient suppliers. So this is really an absolutely unique group of experts who really can move the needle. And in addition, where we are so convinced right from the beginning is that the focus is not only on developing on new animal-free safety methods, NAMs, which is happening anyway, but most importantly, training toxicologists around the world, and certainly in regulatory authorities on existing NAMs and how to leverage, how to actually use them in safety and risk assessments. This is really what we learned is also some obstacle when it comes to regulatory acceptance of NAMs. So it's not only that these methods are validated and generally accepted as an alternative, but they're also actually used in the safety and risk assessment of products and ingredients. And with this, we were absolutely convinced this is the right way to do. This is the right group to work with, to collaborate with. And as you said, Jay, is the first focus was the cosmetics work stream, and we were so happy to engage, and we are so happy and proud by working jointly together within AFSA that we manage now over 40 countries banning animal testing for cosmetics. So this is really an awesome success. And the next step is now clear. We knew such a vertical sectorial regulation, where, so to say, the little bit lower hanging fruit. The much higher hanging fruit are the horizontal chemical legislations and regulations. And unfortunately, here it's actually the pioneering EU which came forward with the first cosmetics animal testing ban in 2013, which just recently made things more difficult and, in honesty, a little bit also quite challenging by demanding animal tests for a number of ingredients, which the EU by itself is banning for consumer safety in cosmetics products, but now is mandating those tests for those ingredients for other safety questions, like, for example, worker safety. So so clearly, we see here that we need to work this also at a horizontal regulatory level, where simply the sectorial legislations intersect. And so we believe we're now working jointly together across all sectors, so at the horizontal chemical regulatory levels across the globe, that we truly can significantly move the needle. And again, here we strongly believe the AFSA masterclasses are exactly the right mean, the right measure to moving this forward. We have demonstrated it works for cosmetics, for consumer safety, for people daily using products in their bathroom, putting them on their skin. So we have demonstrated NAMs work. And now we just need to break it down and make it applicable across all other categories, and definitely then via horizontal chemical legislations. We know it's possible. We learned how to do it. We knew how to convince regulators and toxicologists around the world in the power of NAMs. And so we remain fully committed to doing this now at the chemicals work stream, moving forward, because, and that's what we put in the last note, is we strongly believe ending animal testing is only possible by working together. And that's the reason why we are here. So that's a little bit my perspective as a founding member of AFSA, and really following and supporting this group and all the work we are doing for so many years. And we are excited to continue doing so. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Harald. We really appreciate your involvement and P&G's involvement. Yeah, we look forward to much more close collaboration and close working together, that's for sure. We're now going to turn over to Giorgio Paloca, who is going to tell us a little bit more about some of the tools we're developing in AFSA and where we're going from here. So take it away, Giorgio, please.
Thank you, Jay. All right. Indeed. So we have heard about the strategy behind AFSA and also all the people involved and the example that Harald also brought to the discussion. But what I'm going to cover instead is the practical measure that AFSA is developing to achieve its goal. So we're talking about tools that can span from the capacity building and training. And of course, the AFSA Masterclass will talk about this a little bit. Then also about tools that allow to collect knowledge and support decisions for implementing NAMs more consistently into regulatory frameworks. And finally, also the use of workshop and expert engagement. So if we think about the first type, so the capacity building tools, as was mentioned many times, AFSA Masterclass is the best example. The AFSA Masterclass is a master level course in animal-free cosmetic safety assessment. It has been thought as a tool that would be useful for regulators and smaller companies that are still unfamiliar with modern non-animal tools to increase their understanding, competence, and trust in the use and implementation of such approaches. The masterclass is organized in 10 modules, has been developed under the coordination of Humane Food for Animals, but from almost 60 authors from the different AFSA partner companies. So a very broad level of expertise has been put into this platform that is free, it is online, and can be accessed if you want by a link on this QR code. So the AFSA Masterclass follow a process that is based on the workflow that was published by the European Commission project SEURAT, that is consisted of 3 tiers. So the first tier where there is a problem formulation and the first estimation of exposure. Tier 1, where there is hypothesis generation and testing in vitro, and Tier 2, where there is further in vitro testing, more tailored, refinement of biokinetics, and estimation of point departure. And this information is then used for determining the margin of exposure and finally risk assessment conclusion. And the AFSA Masterclass covers these different aspects. For instance, Module 1, description of the problem formulation, including also the collection of existing information, initial establishment of the generation of the mode of action hypothesis. Then we have Module 2, that is that cover consumer exposure, including habits and practice, and where the data is and where it can be found. Then we have Module 3 that cover a variety of in silico tools and data and what can be used for, and also what is the thought process behind them, so the validation and how these tools are established. And then we have Module 4 about exposure-based waiving and how can be applied for exposure routes, oral, dermal, inhalation. It's also including a part of history of safe use, for instance, regarding the assessment of botanicals. Then we have a module that is very broad. It's about in vitro data. It's about how bioactivity can be detected, how to generate the data, and how they can be combined for identification, characterization of hazard and risk assessment. And the internal exposure, so module 5, where we have exposure, so aspect about ADME, so absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion, and then the different types of model can be used, including also PBPK. And finally, there is the last module, how all this information can be combined into to then reach to a risk assessment conclusion. And what AFSA is doing is, of course, describing some of the models, but most importantly, how to use the data. So not how to perform the model, but how to use the data coming from these models and the information sources then to really reach a risk assessment conclusion. The second tool that I'm going, an example that I'm going to present today is, was already also mentioned by Jay, is the AFSA Last Resort Decision Tree Framework. And it's about this kind of tool that helped for enforcement and compliance with the last resort, with the last resort requirement. So the decision tree is focusing on phase 1 endpoints. So these are animal tests for which there is a general scientific agreement that replacement approaches are already available and accepted. So we are talking, for instance, about acute oral toxicity, skin sensitization, eye irritation and damage, skin irritation, corrosion, and aquatic toxicity. So if there are available alternatives, available non-animal approaches, then the next step is how we ensure that these approaches are used, and how to ensure the enforcement of the last resort requirement, so that animal testing is performed only whether or not only when these tests are found to be insufficient. And this is why we started this project, the AFSA Last Resort Decision Tree, because this tool is a structured science-based workflow that helps to guide and document testing strategies in line with the last resort requirement, and to do that in a transparent and traceable manner. We have published in this workshop report the concept of the framework already last year, where all, and they can be accessed by this QR code, and is explained in this publication the objective of the tool. So it's on one end to provide registrant with an overview of what are the suitable testing methods that can be used and applied for different endpoints. And on the other side, also offer assessor a structured tool to evaluate whether all non-animal approaches have been sufficiently considered and explored before then resorting to animal testing. To do that, we have collected this information in a modular approach. It's based on the OECD IATA framework, where we have the different modules that, for instance, collect sources from physical chemical properties, QSAR, in vitro, read across, and then extrapolation from other in vivo data, and as last resort, the last module on in vivo testing. And we have populated this module with available tests and assay, and also referring to available guidance documents in order to have a science-driven, systematic and transparent way how to describe such testing strategies. So we are the first decision tree for acute oral toxicity as soon as to be published, and we will follow then the other endpoints as soon as they're ready. The third tool I would like to approach that I would like to introduce instead is the use of a multi-stakeholder discussion. And for doing that, I will present an upcoming workshop that AFSA is going to organize. This is about phase 2, phase 3 endpoints, so animal tests for which, so this area of testing where animal tests, there are replacement approaches that are not yet readily available, or for which there is still need for more research and development. And the idea of this workshop that will happen in August in Scotland is to rethinking together the underlying goals and structure of chemical regulations, and to do that, to explore a new chemical system that is based on non-animal approaches in a trusted and to provide trusted information. And the main aim would be to explore whether non-animal approaches to supported IATA can become the foundation for a safer and more sustainable global chemical regulation. And to do so, we have invited a very broad expertise from different sectors and stakeholder groups from regulators, science, industry, NGO, and policy communities. And together, this group will help us to identify the scientific and regulatory gaps and barriers, but also the social and trust-related challenges, and together also identify the opportunities and recommendations for bring forward this transformative system change. And these are all the tools that are at the moment developed or being developed. But these are all, we think they're all very concrete, relevant for different regions and different sectors. And one of the objectives of this webinar series is indeed to promote them and to put them in practice. So this series of that is starting today with the AFSA Regulatory Transformation webinar is the idea is to have local webinars in local language, in a way that to describe some practical measure for achieving regulatory transformation in a different region of relevance. And we can do this thanks to the fact that we have a local AFSA partner that will join us during the different appointments. And just to end, so the next, these are the next appointments, and the next one will be focused on EU, and will happen on the 16th of July at the same time as today. So please save the date, and also keep an eye on the AFSA events website and also on our social media channels. With this, I would like to thank you for attention, and I will invite again Jay and Harald to join me for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Georgia. And yeah, thank you, Harald, as well. Yes, we have a really exciting, I think, program of activities coming up. I'm really excited about these different webinars where we can really explore in each country what's happening and how AFSA can make a difference with some of the tools that Georgia mentioned, and also with the aim of developing new approaches, new tools, and new methods that are really appropriate for these areas. So yeah, thank you everybody for your attention. We've also got a few questions. I can see, Harald, you already addressed one of them, which was around horizontal legislation. So thank you so much. If anybody does have any other questions, please do pop them in the Q&A area. But for now, I would like to address, Meryl, you've asked a question about, would court cases be useful to enforce the last resort? And, you know, I mean, this is definitely an option, an area that can be investigated. I think what we want to do is really try and help everybody be a little bit better and really help everybody understand what actually complying with the last resort requirement means. Certainly, we can do a certain amount of regulator accountability. And, you know, as I mentioned, we'll be looking into what we call meaningless testing a lot more. And this might involve case studies and examples where the last resort requirement hasn't been met. I mean, at the minute, it's a really tricky thing to do legal challenges. You know, they take a lot of time, they take a lot of money. You know, whether or not you'll be successful is always a bit of a toss-up. But what we feel with the last resort decision tree approach, what we can do is actually be a lot more transparent and a lot more systematic in how we structure testing and how we actually then help people understand what it actually means to test their chemicals. Helping people understand not just what is available, because there's a lot of lists out there. The EPA's got their list of methods, ICCR's got lists of methods and things, but it doesn't really bring them together and knit them together in a systematic way. So if you are a registrant and you have a particular chemical, you might look at this list and go, okay, but I don't really know what that means for my chemical. But if you look at the decision tree as Georgia was presenting, you can very clearly see, okay, well, I know this, and so I have to take this path, and this is how I can end up complying with the regulation, but avoiding animal testing. Or in the very, you know, minority of cases where we end up having to reach this last resort, at least things have been demonstrated how that thought process has been thought through. And I think for me, that's much more powerful. It's much more kind of future focused. It's a bit more collaborative. And it also then helps, I think, foster relationships between registrants and regulators. And it helps regulators be able to learn and apply those learnings to the cases that they're looking at and the cases in the future. So this is the approach that we're taking. Court cases can be another approach. We're not specifically entertaining those right now. So we're going to explore this path, and then hopefully we see success there.
Jay, maybe I can add one comment to
Please.
this. I would fully echo what you just said. Of course, court cases, and we had the case already with the EU Court of Justice ruling on the UV filter just recently. It's first we should really try to, like you say, help to understand, okay, how safety assessments can be done with NAMs, and close a couple of misunderstanding gaps, or just help regulators also to see what's possible already today. I would go one step further, and that requires, and here again, this group would be extremely valuable to really lead and drive this discussion also at a regulatory level, is where can we learn from the sectorial regulation? So we have been quite successful. So for example, cosmetics, also addressing your earlier question, Meryl, is where we, for example, can build on specific exposure assessments from how much of an ingredient is used in a product, how much is being exposed to the skin. This helped already to basically with all animal testing mandates, which is getting a little bit more difficult when we're getting into this horizontal chemical legislation, cutting across all potential uses. How do you define an exposure resulting in ingredient used in so many different applications? So how can we help? How can we jointly work together with regulators, for example, in Europe with REACH, to come forward with maximum use levels a person could be exposed at all? Is it just accidentally? Is it ongoingly? What worker safety measures need to be implemented to also then really come forward with exposure assessments, worst case exposure assessments? Is that really then necessary to doing an animal test? Where can we read across from similar materials? So this is not, there's no one fits all solution, but it's really thinking one level up, okay, what needs to be true? And then really asking, and that's for me the key question, is asking, is an animal test in which often enormous amounts of an animal is then being exposed to, what is such an animal test adding value to in terms of safety and risk assessments for people? Are we truly expecting to learn something significantly more, which we don't know yet from all the NAMs, from read across, and anything else? And I think this is, again, that different levels of building trust, of mutual understanding, moving forward. Again, it's not just NAM's application where, but also asking the question, is an animal test really, really necessary? What is it adding value?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Harald. I really appreciate that build for sure. Yeah, so it's there's a lot going into here and a lot for us to think about, but yeah, we're definitely making progress, and we're really excited about the future. I wanted to say as well, we had a list of countries there where we're doing specific webinars. And we want to extend this into next year. And if you feel that perhaps a country wasn't specifically listed, do get in touch with me. And maybe we have plans to do that already, or we can work together on maybe how we can make this a reality as well. And if you also are not currently involved in AFSA and want to be, then please do also reach out to me, and we'd be happy to have that conversation. So. At present, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A, but we'll maybe leave a nice awkward 15 seconds for you to type a question in quickly if you're desperate to. But otherwise, I think, we're going to have a lot of questions, hopefully a lot of discussion in our regional webinars. We can go into a heck of a lot more detail than we did today. But it's going to be, I think, a really exciting program, and hopefully very useful for you all as well. Any other, I suppose, final comments, Giorgio or Harald?
No, I agree with the comment from Harald that they learn to each other, this from different sectors, also from different region, and that would be very interesting also in the AFSA webinar to see this, how same tools can be used in different way or similar way, what we can learn, and this is, I think, the added value that we can really bring to have this broad view of what is ongoing and how, yeah, approaches can be used.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Super. All right. Well, nobody's taken me up on my offer of an additional question. So with that, I will thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for attending. I hope that you'll attend our future webinars and also spread the word for other people who might be interested. And yeah, please don't be a stranger. Get in touch. And we love working on this, and we'd love to work together because I think together we can do even more and do it faster and better. So thank you also, Harald and Georgia, for your time and your insights. And we hope you enjoyed the event. And with that, we shall close. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a nice
Thank
afternoon.
you. Bye-bye.